Hey guys, tonight we drift into the middle of a desert, where the air itself feels like it's keeping secrets. The stars sprawl wider than they should. The sand glows with the faintest silver under moonlight, and out on the horizon, a dull, neon hum pulses like a heartbeat that doesn't belong to the earth. That's Area 51. It doesn't need an introduction, but you'll get one anyway, because you're lying there in bed, staring at the ceiling. And I'm about to tell you a story you probably won't survive. Don't worry, only in the metaphorical, drowsy sense. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know, where are you listening from, and what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments if you're still awake by the end of this. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself wandering the Nevada desert in the quiet hour between midnight and nothing. Your shoes crunch over grit, your breath comes out in small white puffs, and somewhere far ahead a glow rises, not from a town, but from something more secretive. Area 51 isn't marked on the maps with a friendly pin. Instead, it hovers like a rumor you can almost touch. Out here, every cactus feels like it's leaning toward you, whispering that you shouldn't get closer. But of course you do. The desert wind slides across your ears, almost like static, the same kind you get when you used to flip between radio stations as a kid. Scientists still wonder if static could be cosmic background noise leftovers from the Big Bang itself. And you, trudging through sand, wonder if the same hiss could also be some alien lullaby that no one's translated yet. A nice thought, except for the part where you remember you forgot to pack snacks. A few miles out, you spot it, the faint sodium glow of lights running in neat rows, outlining fences that snake across the desert floor like mechanical veins. You can't see much else, but you know everyone knows what waits beyond those gates. Or rather, what might. If the government ever did stash a saucer, a shard of alien alloy, or some poor confused ET who never phoned home, this is where it would sleep. You shift the strap of your backpack, thinking about how absurd it is. A desert so empty, yet watched by so many dots. Suddenly, the horizon flickers. A set of red dots blink on, evenly spaced, hovering in formation. Airplane lights? Maybe, except they don't move the way planes should. They pause, sway, as if considering their next move, and then sip. Just like that. No sound, no smoke trail, just the faint afterimage burned into your retinas. And you're left blinking, wondering if sleep deprivation is doing its usual magic. That's the thing about this desert. It invites speculation. You stand there, listening, waiting, almost hoping something will happen again. Maybe it's advanced Air Force prototypes. Maybe it's interstellar hitchhikers running late. The air is so still it feels staged, like someone pressed pause on the world. And in that silence, you notice your own thoughts stretching further than they normally would. Like your brain's on some cosmic Wi-Fi network. There's a rock nearby, smooth and flat, so you sit, pulling your jacket tight. The neon glow from the distant base shimmers faintly, as if the sand itself is glowing. You remember reading once about desert mirages, how hot air bends light, creating ghostly images of lakes that don't exist. But this glow isn't shifting or vanishing. It pulses in rhythm, a heartbeat beneath the ground. Scientists still wonder if our planet hums in ways we haven't measured yet. Could it be the Earth itself communicating? Or maybe just a generator humming under classified concrete? Both are equally spooky, both are equally boring, and somehow both help you relax. The desert smell drifts in dust, sagebrush, and that faint ozone tang you associate with electronics left running too long. Your phone buzzes once, though there's no signal. You check anyway, squinting at the screen, and for a second you swear you see bars. Full service. Then they vanish, a glitch. Or maybe your phone just caught the attention of something else. You shrug it off, tuck it away, and laugh at yourself quietly. Who gets jumpy over a phone in 2025? You do, clearly. Overhead, the stars stretch wider than you've ever seen. You trace out Orion, Cassiopeia, and that odd patch of darkness the astronomers call the Coalsack Nebula. They say the human brain is wired to find patterns in the stars, to turn random points into hunters and queens. But tonight you notice something stranger, a new alignment, like three dots forming a perfect equilateral triangle where no constellation should be. You blink, look again, and it's still there. A trick of the eye. Maybe, but you can't shake the thought that someone or something just drew a connect-the-dots puzzle across the sky for you. The desert is full of these moments, where ordinary details turn slippery. You imagine Area 51 watchers scattered across the scrubland, binoculars propped on their knees, thermoses of coffee in hand, waiting for something spectacular. They must love this liminal space between certainty and sleep, where imagination does half the work. You take a deep breath, and the air feels thick with history. Every grain of sand might have caught the glow of a UFO. Every cactus might have overheard an alien sigh, of course. You remind yourself, that's probably just your tired brain romanticizing. A base is a base. Secret planes get tested here, that's all. Still, you smirk. If it really were just about planes, they wouldn't need guards with night vision goggles patrolling fences that stretch to the horizon. It's almost like the mystery itself is the point. A giant bedtime story the government never bothered to end. And so you sit there, feeling the desert hum against your spine through the rock. And you realize, this is how every story begins. Not with proof, not with evidence, but with one restless watcher in the sand, staring at a glow and whispering, "What if?" You stay seated on that rock as the desert grows even quieter. Though quiet is a relative term out here. The silence isn't empty. It's layered, like a soundscape designed by someone who wanted you to notice the absence of noise. Every now and then a cricket chirps, but even that feels rehearsed, like the desert rehearsed this lullaby just for you. Ahead, the faint glow marks where the fences begin. You can't see them yet, but you know they're there, miles of chain link, topped with cameras, sensors, and those famous keep-out signs. They call this place a restricted zone, but you already knew that. The gates are the most ordinary thing in the world's steel bars, floodlights, maybe a lone guard inside a truck, probably half asleep. Yet you find yourself staring, the way a moth stares at a lamp it knows will kill it. Why? Because gates do something funny to the human brain. They're boundaries, yes, but also invitations. If someone goes to the trouble of locking something away, your curiosity inflates like a balloon. And if you're lying in bed listening right now, you know that feeling, the itch to peek. Even when peeking gets you in trouble. From your vantage point, you imagine the guards inside, sipping bitter coffee, half watching monitors that flicker green in the night. What do they see on their screens? Just sand, rocks, maybe a tumbleweed wandering like it's late for an appointment. And yet they keep watching. You wonder if even they know what they're guarding, or if the act of watching has become the point. Scientists still wonder if observation itself changes reality. The classic quantum experiment with photons where just looking alters the outcome pops into your head. Maybe Area 51 works the same way. Maybe the secrets inside only exist because the watchers outside keep believing in them. A car approaches the gate from the highway, headlights slicing through the dark. It slows, not stopping, just hovering in curiosity like you. Then, predictably, it rolls on. You smile at the thought of families on late-night road trips, kids pressing their noses to the glass, whispering, "That's where the aliens are." And maybe the parents, even though they laugh, drive just a little faster after passing. But some people don't drive on. Some linger. You picture the UFO watchers with their fold-out chairs and telescopes, camped a safe distance from the gates. They're ordinary people, retirees with way too much free time, college kids fueled by instant noodles, amateur astronomers who probably should be sleeping. They sit there, wrapped in blankets, cameras pointed at the sky like they're waiting for a midnight fireworks show. And here's the strange part. Sometimes they actually see something. The gates themselves rarely open. Deliveries go in by day, personnel shuttles in and out at scheduled times, and then the bars slam shut again. For the rest of the night, they stand like metal guardians, shining beneath the floodlights. You wonder if the gates are even necessary. If Area 51 truly houses secrets that could unravel the universe, what good are a few metal bars? It's like putting a lock on Pandora's box and hoping curiosity will just give up. You shuffle closer in your imagination until you can almost feel the cold of the steel against your fingertips. The chain link vibrates faintly, whether from the desert wind or some hidden current, you can't tell. You lean in, pressing your ear to the mesh, expecting silence. Instead, you swear you hear a faint hum. Not the hum of machinery, but something subtler, like the deep purr of a cat you can't quite see. And your first thought is ridiculous. Maybe the gates themselves are alive. A sci-fi idea, sure, but not a bad one. What if the fences are less about keeping humans out and more about keeping something in? That thought lingers longer than you expect. A flash of memory surfaces old pulp sci-fi stories about alien symbiotes disguised as structures, or cities that were themselves intelligent. Could the gate be more than steel? Could it be a sentry watching you, deciding if you're harmless or worth alerting someone about? You chuckle, brushing it off, though the idea sticks stubbornly in the back of your mind. Overhead, another streak of light appears. This one's brighter, carving across the desert sky like someone scratched a silver coin against the heavens. Too slow for a shooting star, too erratic for a plane. The watchers at their campsites all sit up, lenses tilting, fingers pointing. You sit up too, heart tapping just a little faster. The light wavers, almost dips, then vanishes behind a distant hill. Silence again. And you're left with the question every UFO watcher asks at least once a night. Did you really see that, or did your tired eyes invent it? You think about the guards behind the gate. Did they see it? Do they care? Maybe they're laughing in a break room, watching a monitor replay the same empty stretch of desert. Or maybe their screens showed exactly what you saw, silver streak in the sky, and now they're radioing upstairs to report. The thought gives you goosebumps. Somewhere deep inside that base, someone might be replaying the same few seconds right now, magnifying it, enhancing it, and labeling it with a code you'll never learn. The gate doesn't move, of course. It never does. Yet you feel its presence more strongly with each passing minute. It's not just a fence, it's a threshold. And thresholds are powerful in stories. They separate the known from the unknown, the safe from the unsafe, the sleepy side of your brain from the part still wide awake and buzzing. You lean back against your rock again, the desert air curling cool against your skin, and you realize the gates don't need to open. Just being there is enough to keep your imagination pacing like a restless dog, and as your eyelids begin to grow heavy, you let the glow of the gate sink into your thoughts. It hums like a lullaby you can't quite place, half warning, and you wonder as you drift, maybe the real reason watchers never look away is that the gates themselves are watching back. The desert night deepens, and with it, the sense that something is always hovering just beyond your vision. You sit still, eyes tilted upward, waiting for the next anomaly, and right on cue, the sky delivers. A pale blue orb drifts into view above the ridgeline, not flashing like a jet, not streaking like a meteor, just floating. It glides smoothly, then pauses, like a balloon caught between gusts, though there's no wind. You squint, trying to measure distance 2 miles away, 10. Hard to say when depth itself seems reluctant to cooperate. Then, without warning, another orb appears beside it, faint green this time. They hold their positions, almost like chess pieces locked in contemplation, and before you can even adjust your eyes, a third joins a sharp white point with a halo. 3 lights in the desert sky. They don't form a line or a predictable pattern. They spiral gently, dance a little, then spread apart as though agreeing to cover more territory. You hear murmurs carried by the wind other, watchers on their blankets, gasping softly, whispering guesses. Drones, they say, or flares. Although no one says it to loudly show, the desert has seen plenty of all 3. But you know what drones look like, how flares behave, how jets echo across the basin. These don't behave like that. They don't hum, they don't trail, they don't fade. They simply exist, as if someone pressed pause on physics itself. Scientists still wonder if ball lightning could explain such sightings. Electrical phenomena born of thunderstorms, trapped in spheres, glowing unpredictably. But tonight the sky is clear, no clouds, no storm. Just stars winking like they've all conspired to watch the same performance. And maybe that's all this is, a show. For you, for them, for anyone still awake at 2 a.m. trying to figure out why the universe keeps tossing riddles into the dark. You think of sci-fi movies where UFOs always arrive in dramatic beams, shuttles descending with orchestral blasts. But in truth, if anyone or anything were studying us, wouldn't they prefer subtlety? Small lights, quiet dancers, a long, patient test of how we react. You imagine beings with clipboard equivalents hovering invisibly above, jotting down notes. Subject observed anomaly, tilted head, displayed 38% awe, 62% skepticism. Test successful. The 3 orbs shift again, this time in unison. They arrange themselves into a perfect triangle, equilateral, crisp, geometrically smug. The same shape you noticed earlier when you traced unfamiliar stars. You blink hard, rub your eyes, but when you look again, the formation holds. And that's when your stomach gives a little twist. Either your brain is playing cosmic connector dots, or something is deliberately drawing shapes across the sky just to make you notice. One of the watchers lets out a laugh. It's nervous, high-pitched, The kind of laugh that's meant to convince everyone, including the laugher, that nothing extraordinary is happening. You smile in sympathy. You've done the same thing during horror movies, chuckling at the wrong moments, just to bleed off the tension. But unlike movies, the desert doesn't pause to let you catch your breath. The lights begin to move again. This time, the triangle stretches. One orb shoots upward, impossibly fast, halting in place as though it only wanted to prove acceleration is optional. The other two hold steady. The shape distorts into a line, then reforms back into a triangle, then blurs into a single point. And just like that, they're gone, vanished. No streaks, no sparks, no goodbye. Just an empty sky pretending nothing happened. You lean back on the rock, pulse racing, half expecting applause to erupt. But the watchers stay hushed, as if worried sound might undo what they've seen. A dog barks faintly in the distance, one of the ranch strays that wander too far at night. Even it sounds unsettled. Your brain, ever helpful, tries to catalogue possibilities. Advanced aircraft, maybe projection technology, could be the side effects of staring too long without blinking. Definitely an option. But deep down, another voice hums. A quieter one. The kind that only surfaces when you're almost asleep. It whispers, what if they've always been here? What if they just enjoy messing with your bedtime routine? You chuckle, despite yourself. Aliens, as cosmic pranksters, playing with lights just to see you squint and doubt. It's not the worst theory. In fact, it might explain crop circles, phantom radio signals, even the occasional abduction story. Imagine the universe's most advanced species, bored enough to doodle triangles in Earth's sky. It's either humbling or hilarious. Depending on how much caffeine you've had, the desert air grows cooler, brushing across your skin with that faint electric sting it gets just before dawn. You shiver, not from fear, but from the sheer openness of it all. Above you, the stars return to their usual arrangement, smugly pretending they've been innocent bystanders the whole time. The sky holds its breath, waiting for your interpretation. Scientists still wonder if humans are wired to overinterpret. The brain finds faces in clouds, melodies in static, meaning in random lights. But what if this tendency isn't a flaw? What if it's practice? Training wheels for the day when the patterns aren't imagined, but deliberate. You wonder how many watchers out here tonight are asking the same question, or if they've all silently agreed not to ruin the spell by speaking it out. Loud, you lie back on the rock, letting the grit dig into your shoulders. Closing your eyes, you can still see the afterimage of the triangle burned in neon red against your lids. It pulses faintly, like a memory unwilling to fade. And you wonder, was that the whole show, or just the opening act? Somewhere far off, you hear the soft rumble of an engine. Maybe a jeep patrolling the fence. Maybe something taxiing on one of those runways you'll never be allowed to walk. You open your eyes, scanning the sky again. It's empty now, the desert back to its usual blank stare. And yet, in that emptiness, you sense something watching. From above, from below, maybe from the very air pressing against your skin. You sigh, a little laugh tumbling out with it, because this is exactly how Area 51 works. It doesn't need answers. It only needs to give you just enough mystery to keep your eyelids heavy and your imagination restless. You close your eyes again, letting the triangle lights flicker once more across the darkness inside your head, and you drift. Sleep teases the edges of your mind, but the desert isn't finished with you yet. A sound cuts through the stillness, a faint hum, low and steady, vibrating in your chest more than your ears. You open your eyes, half expecting the lights to have returned, but the sky remains blank. Instead, the hum grows sharper, weaving itself into the silence like an invisible thread. Some watchers sit upright, whispering again. Others pull blankets tighter, pretending not to notice. The desert has its own music-wind coyotes, insects, but this isn't that. This is mechanical, calculated, almost too smooth to be accidental. You strain, trying to pin its direction, but it shifts as though circling you. Now behind, now overhead, now gone, when the hum fades. It leaves behind something stranger, silence that feels heavier than before. Even the insects pause, as if nature itself is holding its breath. You wonder if the desert is trained to obey pursuing whenever they arrive, whoever they might be. Theories flood in. Could it be secret propulsion, the kind whispered about in late-night documentaries? Could it be a test of resonance, seeing how human bodies react to certain frequencies? Or more unsettling, could it be a simple knock at the door, a signal not for you, but for something waiting beneath the sand? The idea of below grips you. The desert floor stretches endlessly, but who's to say it isn't hollowed, riddled with chambers, vaults, or tunnels built long before Area 51 was even a name. Some stories say the base descends deeper than the mountains rise, entire cities buried under salt flats. Others imagine caverns holding artifacts, metallic objects, untranslatable symbols, relics that hum with the same frequency you just heard. A breeze slips across your face, dry and cool, carrying the faint scent of dust and sagebrush. It reminds you of old libraries, the mustiness of knowledge kept hidden. Maybe that's all this place really is, a library without doors. A collection of mysteries stacked so deep the world above can't possibly read them. All .u picture files with names blacked out, photographs blurred, reports stamped classified in heavy ink. You picture scientists scribbling notes at dim desks, soldiers patrolling hallways no one outside will ever walk. And beneath it all, you imagine something older, something not made by any government, smooth tunnels, glowing walls, maybe even staircases leading straight into the crust of the earth. The desert night swallows your thoughts, but not your unease. What is it about emptiness that convinces you something must be hiding? Why does a blank sky make you more suspicious than a sky filled with stars? Perhaps it's the same instinct that made ancient people invent constellations to draw meaning in the void, to fill the silence with stories. A shooting star zips across the horizon, its tail short and white. Someone nearby gasps, but you know better. That's just rock and friction, no mystery there. Yet for a moment, you almost laugh. How ironic that the natural event feels less believable than the impossible triangle of lights you saw earlier. The hum doesn't return, but your ears ring faintly, as though holding onto its memory. It makes you think of the ocean inside a seashell, how sound lingers, echoing in chambers you can't see. You tilt your head back, half hoping the sky will crack open again, half hoping it won't. Sleep is coming faster now. The desert's rhythm, the cool air, the weight of too many unanswered questions, they all lull you closer to that drifting state where thought dissolves into dream. And yet, even as your eyelids lower, your mind clings to one image, a door. Not in the sky, not in the base, but right here under the desert rock. A door that only opens when no one is fully awake. Perhaps that's the real trick of Area 51, not to reveal itself while you're alert, but to wait until you hover between waking and sleeping, when your imagination is pliable, when your skepticism is too tired to argue. That's when it shows you things. Lights, hums, doors in the desert. And then, when morning comes, it lets you dismiss it all as dreams. You smile faintly at the thought, too tired to resist it. Dreams, after all, are the perfect cover story. The desert runway stretches before you, black as spilled ink under the starless sky. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than a slab of asphalt carved into emptiness, a line across the wasteland. But as your eyes adjust, you notice how unnaturally long it is, longer than any commercial runway you've ever seen. Longer than logic suggests it needs to be. It vanishes into the horizon, a path to nowhere, or maybe a path to somewhere that isn't supposed to exist. You step closer in your mind, imagining what might thunder down this strip of concrete. Not ordinary jets, they'd be too loud, too clumsy, their engines would betray them. No, this space feels built for things that slip silently, that need a vast stage to leap into the sky without a trace. Triangular crafts, saucers, sleek black shapes that fold light like origami dot. It's funny you recall those classic UFO, the flying saucer hovering over cornfields, the silver discs wobbling in old TV shows. Out here, though, the idea of something wobbling feels almost insulting. If they're real, they don't wobble. They glide, they hum, they vanish. The runway itself is proof of that, a tool for things too fast and too strange for airports we can explain. A watcher beside you murmurs that the runways here sometimes glow faintly, as if lined with hidden lights that only activate when needed. Another swears the strips can shift or extend, sliding into the desert-like drawers from a cosmic desk. You chuckle softly at the image, picturing some giant alien hand pulling a runway out of the sand just to test a new toy. It's absurd, but the desert has a way of making absurdity feel reasonable. You imagine pilots, human or otherwise, sitting in cockpits with controls that don't look like controls. Maybe they're guided by thought, not by switches. Maybe they're not guided at all, just vessels with destinations baked into their skin, like hummingbirds. And you wonder, what if every new piece of tech humanity boasts about stealth planes, drones, even the Wi-Fi in your pocket began right here, sliding down this endless runway in secrecy before trickling into your everyday life? A question lingers. Why here? Why this dry, empty stretch of Nevada desert? Was it chosen for its isolation, or because something was already buried beneath the dust? Some say Groom Lake, once a dry bed of water, holds more than cracked mud. That beneath the cracked surface lies a hidden hangar mouth, where crafts rise silently at night, bypassing the strip entirely. Others claim the entire basin is a disguised landing pad, a flat expanse designed for things too massive to fit in hangars at all. The desert wind picks up again, brushing your skin with its chill. It carries a smell you can't quite name, metallic, almost electric, as though the very air has been charged. It makes you wonder if the runway itself is alive in some way. Not alive like an organism, but alive like circuitry, pulsing with unseen energy, storing instructions for the next craft to come. You drift deeper into that thought, picturing the asphalt not as stone but as skin, a surface that knows who steps on it, a surface that whispers back to the machines it serves. That hum you heard earlier, what if it wasn't from above, but from here, from this very strip? What if you were already standing on the stage of the show, unaware the play had begun? Someone yawns nearby, their blanket pulled tight. Another sips lukewarm coffee, eyes fixed on the black horizon. Their patience is endless, almost devotional. You realize that the runway isn't just for crafts, it's for people like them, too. An altar where believers kneel night after night, waiting for the gods of the sky to descend. They don't demand proof. The waiting is the proof. A small joke curls in your mind. Airports should take notes. Imagine sitting at gate 51 instead of gate B12, watching for flights that may or may not exist. No boarding passes, no security checks, just a sky that occasionally answers. You smile, sleep tugging at your lips. But as your smile fades, a new thought creeps in. If these runways are built for ships that leave no trace, then what happens to the ones that don't succeed? Do they bury themselves in sand, vanish back into the tunnels below, or simply disappear into thin air? Maybe the desert swallows failures whole, erasing all evidence before dawn. Maybe that's why you never find wreckage, because the land itself is complicit, hiding secrets the way dunes hide old bones. Your eyes close briefly, and for a moment you're sure you can feel vibrations beneath the ground, as if something enormous is preparing to move. Not tonight, not yet, but someday. The runway is patient, and so are you. You breathe deeply, the night air cool in your lungs. Above, the stars blink like distant signal lamps. Below, the desert holds its silence. And ahead, the runway stretches on and on, a path both endless and invisible, leading you closer to dreams. Roswell hangs in the desert air like a bedtime story you've heard 100 times. Yet somehow it always feels fresh when told under these stars. You lean back against the sand, blanket tugged higher, and let your mind drift to 1947, when a rancher stumbled upon something odd in New Mexico. The story has worn many masks: weather balloon, top secret balloon, experimental craft, but the first whispers told of a crash that wasn't earthly at all. You imagine it now. Pieces of metal scattered across the scrub. Fragments so light they bent but never broke, shimmering under the hot sun. Witnesses described hieroglyph-like symbols etched into the wreckage, strange fibers that refused to burn, and officials arriving with a speed that felt rehearsed. One day it was a flying disc, the next a balloon, and ever since, the silence has been louder than the announcement. You smirk, half sarcastic, half sincere. Isn't it funny that the world's most famous UFO story was explained away with the simplest word in the dictionary below? As if humanity could shrug off the possibility of visitors by pointing upward and saying, "Nope, just rubber." Yet here you are, decades later, lying awake near a runway built for things balloons could never dream of imitating. The watchers around you seem to carry Roswell in their bones. An older man fiddles with a vintage camera, the kind with knobs and levers, as if still waiting to capture his own first proof. A younger woman sketches in a notebook, tiny drawings of saucers, triangles, and lights. They don't need the government to confirm anything. The story itself has already rooted in the culture, a myth as familiar as lullabies. And myths are powerful. They don't just live in books or rumors, they shape landscapes. You suspect that without Roswell, Area 51 might never have gained its gravity. The desert might have been just another empty stretch. Instead, it became the canvas for every dream, fear, and suspicion about what flies above us. Scientists, of course, try to play the adult in the room. They remind you that memory is flawed, that crash sites can be misunderstood, that conspiracies thrive in the absence of evidence. Yet even scientists can't fully erase the question, what if? What if something did fall that night, and what if it wasn't ours? You picture a storage room beneath Area 51, crates stacked like in an old adventure film. Inside them, pieces of something not designed for this planet. Smooth curves, metals that shimmer with an inner glow, fragments humming faintly when touched. Scientists hover with gloves, poking, prodding, sketching. Every experiment feels like a bedtime story retold in whispers, the moral always shifting. Was Roswell a mistake? A message? A gift? The desert breeze shifts, cooler now, tugging at your blanket. Coyotes called in the distance, their voices sharp against the night. The sound pulls you back to the idea of relics and echoes, how a single event can ripple across generations. Roswell wasn't just a crash, whether balloon or saucer. It was the spark for the culture of watchers you now sit among. Every camera lens, every lawn chair, every thermos of coffee, they're all artifacts of that first flying disc. And you can't help but wonder, if the story had never been told, would you still be here? Would anyone? Or was Roswell less about proof and more about invitation? A whisper from the desert saying, look up. Keep looking. You laugh softly at yourself, the sound swallowed quickly by the sand. Maybe that's all humans ever wanted, permission to believe in more. Whether it's saucers or balloons doesn't really matter. What matters is that, since 1947, the night sky hasn't been empty. It's been full of questions. Like stars too faint to see until you know where to look. Sleep tugs harder now, each thought dissolving more easily into the edges of dreams. You imagine drifting through time, sitting with that rancher as he turned a corner and found wreckage glittering on the ground. You wonder if he felt awe or fear, or just confusion about who to call. And you wonder, most of all, if he knew the world would still be whispering about it long after he was gone. The desert keeps its secrets, but sometimes secrets don't need answers. Sometimes they just need to hum quietly in the background of your life, reminding you that not everything is solved, that not everything should be solved. You close your eyes, hearing again the faint echo of the hum from earlier, and let the Roswell story drift with you, not as a headline, not as evidence, but as a lullaby of unanswered skies. The hangar doesn't have a name, at least not one anyone outside the base knows. You picture it now, a squat structure, plain to the point of suspicion, its walls blending into the desert backdrop as if ashamed of their own existence. Unlike the flashy runways or the bold security fences, this building hides in its own ordinariness. And yet, that very blankness pulls at your imagination harder than any glowing light in the sky. You drift closer in thought, feeling the cool desert wind wrap around you. The hangar is a box, a shadow, a place where stories stop short. Watchers talk about it in hushed tones, as if naming it might wake whatever's asleep inside. They don't give it a title. They just say the hangar. Somehow that's enough. It makes you wonder what could possibly require a disguise of plainness. If you wanted to hide a treasure, you wouldn't put it in a vault lined with gold. You'd stick it in a shoebox under the bed. Maybe this hangar is that shoebox, only on a scale so large the desert itself becomes the bed frame. Rumors cling to it like dust. Some say it holds the fragments of Roswell, stacked neatly in crates. Others whisper it shelters entire crafts, perfectly intact, slumbering in the dark like giant pets waiting to be called. A few insist it isn't a hangar at all, but a mouth and opening into something far deeper underground. You imagine enormous elevators groaning as they lower cargo into caverns beneath the Nevada rock. Chambers that stretch down for miles. Inside your mind's eye, you see workers in pale uniforms, their footsteps muffled on polished floors. They wheel carts covered in tarps, objects hidden even from each other. You imagine one worker brushing the tarp aside for a second, curiosity getting the better of him. What would he see? A piece of metal that bends like fabric, a device that glows faintly when touched, or perhaps nothing recognizable at all, just an object so strange his brain refuses to name it. You chuckle softly, half asleep now, picturing alien artifacts stored next to human coffee mugs and clipboards. The absurdity almost makes it easier to believe. After all, secrecy doesn't always look glamorous. Sometimes it looks like bureaucracy, bad lighting, humming machines, sticky notes on a desk. Maybe the extraordinary is always wrapped in the ordinary, because that's the best camouflage of all. The hangar sits heavy in your thoughts, a symbol of everything you can't see. Its walls don't need windows. They don't need signs. They just need to exist, so that imaginations like yours can wander inside without ever crossing the threshold. You wonder about its silence. Buildings usually have voices, creaks, echoes, a hum of activity. But this one feels mute, like a person who knows too much and has chosen to never speak again. Does silence make it safer or more suspicious? The watchers around you don't point cameras at the hangar. They know better. Cameras are for the sky, for the things that move. The hangar doesn't move. It waits. And in that waiting, it gathers more power than the brightest UFO sighting. Because a flash of light can be explained away as swamp gas, or Venus, or imagination. But a nameless hangar. You can't explain away a building that stands day after day, holding its silence against the wind. A quirky thought slips through you. Imagine the hangar as a giant toy chest. When the desert is empty, the chest stays closed. But when the right moment comes, when the sky darkens just right, maybe it creaks open and something climbs out. Something that doesn't need to wobble or glow or make sense. Something that simply belongs here in this strange Nevada dreamscape. Sleep tugs harder now, your body loosening under the weight of the blanket. The hangar grows blurrier in your mind, fading from a building into a concept, from a concept into a dream. Maybe it never existed at all. Maybe you conjured it the way the desert conjures mirages. Or maybe that's the point, the plainness, the silence, the absence of proof. A mystery that exists only because you choose to keep looking at it. You let your eyes close fully, whispering to yourself in thought, some doors never open because they don't need to. Their power lies in being closed. And with that, the hangar fades into darkness, leaving only the hum of your slowing thoughts. The desert has thinned your patience, but the watchers around you seem immune. They're seasoned, almost ritualistic in their stillness. Lawn chairs planted like flags, thermoses clutched like sacred relics, cameras resting on tripods with lenses aimed skyward as if the stars themselves were prey. You glance around, and in the dim starlight you see not just individuals, but a congregation, quiet believers in a church with no walls. Its altar, the night sky above Area 51. You ease deeper into your blanket, observing them the way they observe the heavens. Their patience is astonishing. Hours slip by, yet no one complains, no one packs up. They sit as though waiting itself is the point. And maybe it is. After all, the desert doesn't owe them a show. The desert offers only silence. and it's their choice to fill it with meaning. An older woman nearby wears headphones. The faint static of a radio bleeding out whenever she shifts. She claims to be scanning frequencies, listening for stray signals. A younger man balances a notebook on his knees, jotting down times, directions, temperatures, phases of the moon as if he's compiling a ledger for the sky, hoping to find patterns no one else has noticed. It strikes you that these people aren't just hobbyists. They're archivists of mystery. Each one is writing a story, not for publication, but for themselves. Perhaps that's what makes the ritual soothing, the knowledge that you're part of a slow-burning archive, a history of watching that stretches back decades. You picture sci-fi tropes flashing through your sleepy brain, men in tinfoil hats, wide-eyed conspiracy theorists shouting at static-filled TVs. But these watchers don't fit that cartoon. They're calmer, quieter, almost monk-like. Their devotion isn't manic, but meditative. The desert has trained them well. Out here, patience isn't optional. It's survival. A quirky thought bubbles up you. Imagine Area 51 as a cosmic drive-in theater, except the movie rarely starts on time and sometimes never plays at all. The watchers don't mind. For them, the silence is the feature presentation. Every now and then, someone points upward, murmuring about a flicker or streak. Most of the time, it's nothing more than satellites crawling across the firmament or the quick burn of a meteor. But no one scoffs. Each streak earns respect. Each flicker earns its own hush. After all, who's to say when ordinary light might slip into something extraordinary? You close your eyes briefly, imagining their collective patience as a kind of energy, a silent beacon cast upward. What if that's the real signal? Not the lights in the sky, but the eyes on the ground. Maybe whatever's up there is waiting for proof that we're ready to look without blinking. The desert wind brushes past, carrying a chill that makes your shoulders shiver. Someone nearby offers a quiet laugh, a half-sarcastic joke about how they've spent more money on lawn chairs than on groceries. The group chuckles softly, the sound carried away by the dry air. Even humor here feels gentle, careful not to disturb the sky. You wonder how many watchers have passed through this place, year after year, night after night. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands, all sitting in this same silence, squinting at the same stars. It's almost comforting to think of it as a relay. Each generation passes the patience forward like an invisible torch, and you can't help asking yourself, why do they stay? Why do they keep looking when the odds of seeing anything new are so slim? Perhaps it's not about the odds at all. Perhaps it's about the rhythm, the act of showing up, the comfort of joining strangers who understand the language of waiting. The desert seems to nod in agreement. The sand doesn't rush, the mountains don't move, the sky doesn't hurry to reveal its secrets. Why should the watchers be any different? Sleep pulls at you again, heavier now, but not unpleasant. You let yourself sink into it, knowing the watchers will remain vigilant. Even if your eyes close, theirs will stay open, keeping the ritual alive. And when the lights do return, because surely they will, someday you'll still be part of it, woven into the patient silence of the desert. The desert feels like a cradle now, rocking you gently, even as your mind stirs with wilder imaginings. You've been staring at the runway, the hangars, the silence. But now your thoughts drift toward the idea of what's inside, not inside the buildings, but inside the machines themselves. You picture technology so advanced, it looks more like sculpture than engineering, smooth and seamless, without screws or welds. A craft that isn't built, but groan. Theories bubble up in the watcher's whispers. They talk about reverse engineering, how human hands supposedly took apart alien machines piece by piece, trying to understand their logic. You picture scientists hunched over glowing fragments, scratching their heads at metals that refuse to melt, circuits that heal themselves, engines with no moving parts. How do you reverse engineer something that doesn't even fit the definitions of your language? A smirk plays at your lips. You glance at your phone, at the little glowing rectangle you treat as normal. Internet in your pocket, maps of the whole world, videos beamed from space to your palm in seconds. If you showed this to someone 100 years ago, they'd probably assume you'd stolen it from a saucer. Maybe you did. Maybe every breakthrough of the last century, fiber optics, microchips, night vision, started its life on a lab table at Area 51, pulled from something not built on Earth. It's a classic sci-fi trope, humans fumbling with alien toys. You imagine a jet mechanic staring at a shiny fragment, scratching his head like someone who just opened IKEA instructions written in Martian. How many breakthroughs, you wonder, were born not from genius, but from clumsy trial and error? The quirky thought makes you chuckle softly. Imagine an alien visiting Earth now, seeing your microwave and muttering, well, at least they figured that out. Sort of, but curiosity lingers. What if humanity didn't just borrow from alien technology? What if you misunderstood it completely? Maybe those fragments weren't meant to fly at all. Maybe they were medicine, or art, or even toys. What if the reverse engineering wasn't creating progress, but mistakes machines that imitate but never capture the original purpose? The desert wind brushes over your skin again, cool as ice water. You breathe in deeply, the air dry and thin, and think about how often humans confuse discovery with invention. Did we discover fire, or did fire simply reveal itself when it was ready? Did we invent flight, or did we mimic something older? Perhaps all of history is a long game of reverse engineering mysteries we were never meant to fully solve. Sleep presses harder now. Your eyelids heavy, your thoughts drifting like signals bouncing off satellites. Still, questions sparkle like faint stars. What if the crafts at Area 51 aren't from other worlds at all, but from our own future? What if we're reverse engineering ourselves, building the technology we'll one day send back in time, an endless loop of hand-me-downs from tomorrow? You smile faintly at the absurdity, but the desert doesn't laugh. It accepts every theory, every half-dream, every whispered suspicion, folding them into its silence. The watchers remain steady. Cameras stand like sentries. Notebooks fill with scribbles. Radios hiss faintly. They don't need answers tonight, or even proof. They just need the act of wondering. And as you finally close your eyes again, you realize that maybe reverse engineering isn't about machines at all. Maybe it's about us taking apart the mysteries, piece by piece, hoping to understand ourselves in the process. The desert sky feels like a blanket stretched too tightly, stars pinned against it like sequins. You stare upward, your body heavy but your thoughts restless, tugging at the edges of time itself. Out here, in the shadow of Area 51, it's easy to imagine history folding in on itself. Like paper creased so many times the beginning and end touch. The idea sneaks in. What if this base isn't just a vault for secrets, but a knot in the string of time? A place where past and future brush against each other, sometimes leaving sparks in the form of lights, hums, and rumors. You can almost feel its history bending just slightly, like heat shimmering above asphalt. It's a familiar sci-fi trope. Wormholes, The idea of stepping out of a machine and finding yourself face to face with your younger self. You chuckle faintly, imagining Area 51 as the universe's worst time travel airport flights, delayed by centuries. Baggage lost across dimensions, and a voice over the intercom reminding travelers not to accidentally erase their grandparents. Still, the humor fades into something more unsettling. What if the so-called UFOs people glimpse aren't visitors from another planet, but visitors from another time? Human crafts evolved so far they've circled back to become unrecognizable. Maybe those triangular silhouettes in the sky aren't alien at all. Maybe they're echoes of us, piloted by descendants who know exactly where to look in history to find their origins. The desert wind shifts, carrying sand that whispers across the ground like pages turning. You close your eyes and picture futures bleeding into pasts, the base itself acting as the seam. What if Roswell wasn't a crash but a return? What if all this waiting, these watchers, these sleepless nights saw rituals to catch glimpses of ourselves across the divide? A quirky thought bubbles up. If you met your future self stepping out of a craft, what would you say? Probably not "take me with you." More likely something ordinary, like "do I ever learn to cook spaghetti without burning it?" The thought makes you smile, your laughter low and warm, quickly swallowed by the desert. Speculation presses harder. Scientists say time is relative, elastic, stretched by gravity and speed. If that's true, what would happen if someone bent it too far? Would they slip into the past unnoticed, mistaken for strangers from the stars? Or would they loop endlessly, their future selves chasing their past selves around the timeline like children playing tag in an infinite backyard? The desert doesn't answer, of course. It never does. Its silence is both frustrating and soothing, an unsolved equation written in sand. Maybe that's why you're drawn to it, why everyone here is drawn to it. Because time itself feels softer here, more flexible. Like the night is long enough to hold both yesterday and tomorrow. You breathe deeply, the cool air filling your lungs, your body loosening as the speculation softens. The runway stretches ahead in your imagination, no longer just a launch pad for machines, but a timeline itself, lines, painted not for planes, but for moments waiting their turn to take off. Sleep hovers close, but the questions keep you afloat just a little longer. If Area 51 is a knot in history, then perhaps you're not simply waiting for the future to arrive. Perhaps the future is already here, circling patiently above, watching you watch it. You smile again, eyes heavy, and let the thought settle. Time doesn't always march. Sometimes it lingers, like a shadow in the desert night. The desert holds strange frequencies if you let your mind tune to them. You lie still, body half sinking into the cool earth, ears straining not for wind or engines, but for something quieter. And then it slips in, not quite sound, not quite silence, more like the ghost of a radio signal drifting on the edge of perception. It's the kind of late-night oddity fringe sci-fi loves, signals picked up by things that were never meant to be receivers. You picture a row of cactus spines humming like antennae, catching broadcasts from somewhere far beyond. The desert plants stand upright and stoic, their green arms raised like they've been waiting all this time to tune into a channel you can't find. You grinned faintly at the thought of Area 51 not being guarded by soldiers, but by a whole field of prickly bodyguards whispering in Morse code. Imagine a briefing note. Beware of the... They're transmitting classified gossip to the mothership, a joke. Of course, but only funny because you can almost believe it. The fringe detail lingers. Some enthusiasts claim plants react to music, or stress, or even emotions. If that's true, who's to say they can't also react to signals from above? Maybe those cacti have been recording history longer than human silent witnesses. With memory etched in chlorophyll instead of ink, speculation coils tighter. What if those UFO lights aren't meant for us, but for them? Communication beams aimed at spines, needles, roots. Scientists still wonder if consciousness might emerge in forms we don't recognize. Maybe the desert is already alive in ways we've ignored. A vast antenna field humming with secrets too slow for our ears. The air vibrates differently when you think this way. Every rustle becomes a coded message, every grain of sand a dot or dash. You half expect your phone to buzz with a notification, new voicemail from the cactus. It doesn't, of course, but the thought leaves you smirking at the sky, strangely comforted, and then the silence swells again, wrapping around your speculation like a blanket. If the desert does hum, it hums for those who wait patiently, who listen past the noise. Maybe that's what keeps people here year after year, not the hope of seeing ships land, but the quiet conviction that something is already speaking, if you only let yourself believe. Your breathing evens. The plants keep standing watch. The bass keeps its silence. And you, the late-night listener, float on the edge of signal and static, cradled by mysteries softer than sleep itself. The desert is so quiet now that every little flicker of thought feels amplified, bouncing around your head like a loose signal searching for a tower. You glance toward the silhouette of the control tower rising in the distance. Its windows dark, its frame skeletal against the moonlight. It shouldn't feel menacing, it's just concrete and glass. But something about its stillness makes it seem alive, as though someone inside is watching even if no lights betray them. You picture unseen operators leaning over consoles, faces lit by soft green glow, fingers tapping at keys with the calm of chess players moving pieces on a board only they can see. You chuckle under your breath. The world's quietest board game, winner takes the galaxy. Yet behind the humor, a weight lingers. If anyone is up there, they've been trained to see without being seen, to monitor without disturbing. That's a classic sci-fi trope, the unseen watcher. The eye in the sky, the quiet overlord, the endless stream of faceless operatives who record, catalogue, and file away every flicker of humanity. In your mind, they're like librarians of secrets, endlessly sorting evidence of phenomena that may or may not exist. Perhaps their filing cabinets are labeled things like definitely not aliens and oops, probably aliens. A quirky detail surfaces from your imagination. What if the tower doesn't control aircraft at all? What if it controls time, space, or even sleep itself? The red lights blinking on the side might not be warning signals for planes, but pulses marking shifts in reality. You imagine every blink syncing with your heartbeat, as if the tower is regulating you, gently adjusting your body to stay in rhythm with its secret clock, and then the speculation flows deeper. If operators are inside, what do they think of the people camped outside the fences? Do they laugh at the endless telescopes and lawn chairs, or do they envy them, wishing they too could look up instead of always looking down? Scientists still wonder if observation changes what's observed may be the very act of those. Unseen eyes scanning the desert changes the desert itself. The air feels heavier around you, as though the tower's shadow is stretching farther than it should. Yet it's not frightening. Instead, it's oddly soothing, like being tucked under the gaze of something that sees more than you ever could. It's not approval, and it's not disapproval, It's just quiet acknowledgement that you exist in its line of sight. You close your eyes, imagining the chessboard again, pieces sliding across the desert floor. You're not a pawn, not exactly, but you're definitely part of the game. And maybe, just maybe, the players in a tower get sleepy too, lulled by the hum of electronics and the endless patience required to watch shadows move across Groom Lake. That thought softens your mind. The control tower recedes into the night, no longer a sentinel but a lighthouse, blinking gently in rhythm with your breath, guiding you not across seas but deeper into sleep. The mountains rise like dark guardians around the dry basin of Groom Lake, their slopes jagged yet strangely protective. You drift toward them in your mind, each ridge carrying a weight of silence, each shadow seeming thicker than it should be. People say mountains are solid, eternal, immovable, but out here, whispers linger that these hills are hollow, their hearts carved open by human hands to hide what should never see daylight. It's a deliciously eerie sci-fi trope, the hollow mountain. Secret bases tunneled deep inside, hangars hidden behind false rock faces, elevators descending farther than any tourist map could guess. You picture it like something out of a retro pulp novel, doors sliding open to reveal silver discs, engines purring with a sound closer to a cat's breath than a machine. And you can't help but smile at the thought, Area 51, brought to you by your local cave enthusiast club. Then a quirky thought tickles you. What if the mountain isn't hollowed out by humans at all? What if the caverns predated us, natural or otherwise? Imagine stumbling into one and finding walls that hum when you touch them, or markings in a language shaped like spirals instead of letters. Maybe the base wasn't built in the mountains, but built around them like a hermit crab, claiming a shell already designed for something stranger. Speculation rolls forward, slow and steady as stone. If the mountains do hide chambers, what happens inside? Are there crafts parked in secret hangars, waiting decades between test flights? Or are there artifacts, things so old and incomprehensible they have to be buried beneath layers of rock, the way a child hides broken glass under a rug? Scientists still wonder about Earth's unexplained voids, hollow pockets and caves that stretch for miles without collapsing. Could Groom Lake's hills be one of those mysteries, chosen precisely because nature had already done the heavy lifting? The desert wind sighs, carrying with it a chill that feels like breath rising from underground tunnels. You imagine standing at the mouth of a cave, flashlight flickering, only to realize the glow is unnecessary. The walls themselves emit a dim light, pulsing like a heartbeat. It's unsettling, yes, but also oddly comforting, like the mountain itself is alive, aware of your presence, even protective, and the watchers outside the fences. Maybe they're not just scanning the skies for ships. Maybe, unconsciously, they're also waiting for something to emerge from below. A double vigil, eyes lifted to the stars, yet hearts attuned to the ground beneath their chairs. The thought steadies you, strangely. You're part of the same ritual lying here, imagining hollows in stone, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath your ribs. You breathe in, long and slow, as if sharing air with the hidden chambers of the mountain. And for a moment, it feels as though the earth is exhaling back, wrapping you in its timeless calm. The mountains remain still, dark, unreadable. But in their silence, you find an invitation to keep wondering, to keep drifting, to let curiosity be the tunnel that carries you deeper into rest. You sit with the desert watchers now, though no one speaks. The folding chairs creak under shifting weight. Cameras rest on tripods like sentinels, and every eye tilts toward the sky. It's not a frantic searching, it's a patient, almost devotional waiting, as though staring into the quiet night has become a ritual all its own. There's something comforting about the way people keep showing up here year after year. They bring coolers, blankets, thermoses of coffee that will go lukewarm long before dawn. Some wear shirts plastered with UFO slogans, others sit in silence, their gazes soft but unyielding. Watching the watchers, you realize this has less to do with proof and more to do with persistence. It's a familiar sci-fi trope. The believers who wait. In countless stories, there are always characters who keep vigil on the edge of the unknown, holding on to faith that something will reveal itself. Out here, the trope feels less like fiction and more like bedtime tradition. No flashing ships required. Just the act of looking upward with quiet stubbornness. A quirky detail emerges from your drifting thoughts. What if the UFOs only show themselves to people who bring snacks worth sharing? Imagine a cosmic being hovering overhead, peeking into a cooler, and deciding, sorry, no chips. No visitation. It's ridiculous. Of course, but it makes you chuckle softly, and the sound blends into the desert air like an offering. Speculation folds in once more. Why do they wait here, of all places? Maybe it's not just the hope of seeing something extraordinary, it's the community. The strange family built under starlight. Scientists still wonder about the psychology of ritual, how repeating an act like staring into the same patch of sky shapes the mind. Perhaps the watchers are binding themselves to the mystery, weaving their lives into its fabric by simply refusing to stop looking. The desert accommodates them, stretching wide and silent, its stillness cradling their vigil. You breathe with them, slow and steady, your chest rising and falling in rhythm with the others who have come here. And it dawns on you, the waiting itself is the answer. Not proof, not spectacle, but the gentle surrender to not knowing. The willingness to sit quietly with questions that may never resolve. The stars blur slightly, your eyes heavy, your body folding deeper into stillness. Around you, the watchers remain, but their presence is soft, no longer about searching, only about belonging. And in that shared patience, you find yourself welcomed into the ritual, drifting further into the embrace of unanswered skies. The desert has quieted to the point where even your own heartbeat feels like an interruption. The watchers around you blur into silhouettes, patient and still, their faces tilted toward a sky that refuses to answer. You lean back, eyes heavy, realizing that what you've been chasing all this time isn't a revelation, but a kind of lullaby hidden in the mystery itself. The stars shimmer like spilled salt, scattered beyond measure, each one a reminder of distances too vast to cross tonight. You let them glow without demanding explanations. Somewhere ships may glide, timelines may bend, mountains may hum, but here, in this moment, it doesn't matter. The mystery is enough. It's the classic sci-fi trope of the unanswered question, the cliffhanger that never resolves, the transmission that cuts off mid-sentence. Normally that would frustrate you, but now it feels soothing, like a bedtime story without an ending, leaving space for dreams to fill the gaps. A quirky thought drifts in. What if the UFOs have been waiting for you to fall asleep this whole time? That once your eyelids close, they finally land, tiptoeing around the camp with the awkward grace of house guests who don't want to wake the host. The image makes you smile, your laugh soft and tired, vanishing into the desert air, and still the bigger question hangs. Why does Area 51 continue to draw us here? Scientists still wonder why mysteries cling to certain places, why some landscapes refuse to let go of their secrets. Maybe it's not about what the base hides, but what it inspires: the endless curiosity, the gentle devotion of people staring at nothing and calling it everything. You exhale, the air cool and weighty. The unanswered sky doesn't feel indifferent anymore. It feels like a cradle, rocking you slowly, wrapping your restless questions in its vast, unbroken quiet. You surrender to it, letting the soft hum of possibility guide you deeper, until the line between watching and dreaming fades completely. The desert loosens its grip, the edges of the mountains softening like shadows dissolving at dawn. Your thoughts, once sharp and restless, drift apart like sand carried on a slow breeze. No urgency remains, no need to solve or prove. Only the quiet pulse of the earth beneath you, steady and eternal, carrying you gently toward rest. The watchers fade too, their patience lingering only as an echo, a reminder that not every question demands an answer. Their silence becomes your silence, their stillness your stillness. You no longer feel separate from them, or from the base, or even from the sky. You're part of the same wide hush, breathing in rhythm with the night itself. Each star above you feels softer now, less like a light to chase and more like a candle glowing in some far-off window. You don't need to reach them. It's enough to know they are there, distant but steady, guiding you not across space but inward, into calm. Your body grows heavier, muscles unwinding, breath lengthening. The desert hum you imagined earlier settles deep into your chest. Slow and warm, a rhythm you can follow all the way into sleep. Let the mystery remain unsolved. Let the silence stretch wide. Let the unanswered skies lull you. Each blink of starlight a whispered promise that you're safe, that you can let go, that you can drift. So, close your eyes. Loosen your grip on the night. Let the questions blur, the desert fade, the watchers dissolve. All that's left is the softness of rest, carrying you farther than any spaceship, deeper than any cavern, quieter than any control tower. Sleep well. End of script.